Hi, welcome to RCKicks. On today's show, well, we're going to be building this, the PRS1RM. Yeah, catchy, I know. Well, I've done an unboxing video of this one, so I'll put a link up here if you haven't seen that already. Let's go watch that and then come back to this. And this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to fully build up all the chassis. Yeah, sorry about this whole cold thing. Yeah, I've been under the weather. That's why this video is a bit later than it should be, but I've been so excited to build it. I'm going to push through it and just get it done. And unfortunately, I was supposed to go racing tonight and I've had to cancel it. Colds. Oh, don't you just love them? Anyway, we kick off on page 4, number A2, where we actually build up the steering. Now, the funny thing about this is in the book, the page 3, A1, is actually putting this together, and they've decided to do it for you, because in the manual, you're supposed to put these on yourself. Bit of a strange one. Right, let's get the steering done. This comes with full bearings, but you need to get your Loctite, not included in the kit, so make sure you've got some handy, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. Now there's an upgrade you can get for this. You can get the aluminium steering linkage set, but it's going to cost you. Also, the actual bridge bar is another option that's available. Now I don't have a spare servo free, I will put in an order for one, so I'm just going to put the actual servo mounts in the car for now, and then I'll fit a servo when it arrives. One thing that really surprised me was that in the kit was this 7-degree alloy swing arm mount. Now there's a few versions of this you can get from a 0 degree, also you can get an alloy front hinge plate as well. When I'm building a kit, one thing I'm always looking for is how flexible everything is once you bolt it together, that there's no binding in any of the pins or the suspension, and I'm happy to report in this kit I had no issues with any kind of binding whatsoever. So that was easy, the lower arms are all done, now we turn our attentions to the spindles. Now, believe it or not, the hex hubs that you see in this kit are almost identical to the ones I've got in my team associated B6.4. Now, if you want to splash some cash, another option that's available to you is the aluminium caster blocks, 3 degrees. Taking into account the cost of the kit and its competitors, the hardware in this kit was really good. I was really chuffed with it. Having the hex screws is a big bonus over, say, Phillips or JIS. Also, the amount of configuration in the chassis is really good to see, so you will be able to fine-tune this at your local track. So there you go, that's the uprights and spindles all done. Now we turn our attentions to the front bulkhead. Now you do have the option to splash some cash and get carbon. You can get a carbon front tower and a rear one. Now all the options that you see in this video, at the time of making this video, I could actually acquire them in the UK. So obviously that makes life a lot easier, especially as the import prices bringing things into the UK can almost double the price of any part that you're after. So there you go, that's the upright tower now in place, and it does feel very sturdy. Now turnbuckles aren't really my favourite thing, but if you've got the right tools and a little knack, you can actually save your fingers from a lot of pain. Also, putting a little bit of oil on the threads will help when you go to adjust them down the line. So there you go, you can see that the arms don't have any friction in them whatsoever, and that's exactly what you're looking for. So I managed to find an optional anti-roll bar, but only for the front. I couldn't find one for the rear. It was really good to see that you could adjust your hub plates, and also it had peels so you could adjust the suspension. It was good to see universals came in the kit. I'm pretty sure the Genova has universals, but the Kyosho Dirt Master doesn't, but I could be wrong. With the extra large bearing at the rear as well, these did feel like a quality product. So if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, as it helps the algorithm push out our content to more RC fans like you. And it's nice to see a set of alloy hexes included in the kit. So that's the rear hubs and shafts done. Now we turn our attentions to the rear arms, pretty much just like the fronts, so they shouldn't give me too much trouble putting them together. Now these two bolts were a bit strange and I had to check to make sure I wasn't doing something wrong. You actually have to screw through a really long bolt, and the idea is that you drop the gearbox onto it and then you use 2 nylon nuts. So you're not doing anything wrong, that's how it's supposed to be done. So now we turn our attention to the diff, and these are all metal gears, and we also get some shims, so make sure you put those in before you put in the planetary gears into the diff. Now I will try different oil thicknesses as well as trying 2 planetary gears over 4 to see if it improves the rotation of the car, but we're not going to know that until we spent some time putting in the laps. No challenges building up the diff, it all went together lovely. Don't forget to put in the actual gasket, because when you put the oil in, if you forget the gasket, you're going to be opening it up all again, otherwise all your oil is going to pour out, which I may or may not have actually almost done. Now believe it or not, this car actually has 2 rear braces, and you can kind of pick and choose from having both of them, or if space is an issue for you, you can actually remove one. So there you go, that's the front shocks done, and they're feeling silky smooth. All we've got to do now is turn our attentions to the 2 in the rear, and then we've got the fun bit of putting the wheels and tyres on, and then that's when it starts to come to life. there you go, that's the basic build, and what's my first impressions of it? Well, better than expected, I must admit. It is really nice. I'll go into a few areas and a few things to watch out for. The first thing that you need to know if you're going to be building this kit is you will need to get yourself some diff oil, you will need some shock oil, and also some Loctite. You don't actually get those in the kit at all, so if you go to build it and you haven't got those already, you're going to get stuck. It does come with some molly grease, so that kind of does, you know, what it's supposed to, but you don't get any of the others. Now, in the manual, it does give you quite a lot of information about setting up the car. There is lots of battery options for this one as well. I've got it set up for a standard shorty lipo pack 2S, but a high one, not a thin, low profile one at the moment. But you can easily run both, there's no issues with that. Or you could run a stick pack if you wanted as well. The body, I'm just cutting out the body quickly now, I haven't sanded it down or anything like that. But getting it to fit, you actually have to kind of slide it under the nose. So you need to cut the nose quite low to get it to clip under. Otherwise the back section sticks out miles, and I wondered what was going on with that. But in the next video, what we'll do is we'll sand off all the body properly, prep it up, paint it, as well as put the electronics in it. Now the electronics I plan on running in this is I'm going to do my Fly Sky standard antennaless receiver, same as I run in all my other race buggies, and I'm going to put in this, which is a 10.5 turn just stock ESC. Now this is the one that gave me problems that I swapped out, so I'm going to try and figure out in a future episode, I'm hoping this is just going to work, I will reset the ESC back to stock, that I can actually fix this, as this had a weird intermittent fault where after about 10 laps it basically started doing weird and wonderful things. So that's my plans to fit this, and hopefully it's going to work. Whether I have to change the ESC, I can't see it being the motor, but hey, there we go. But if it carries on, I will change out the ESC. But this is what I plan on putting in it to take it running. And we're going to take this one racing as well and set some times. So what else have we got to do? Well, I'm going to buy some race tyres, front and rear. There's no point using these on an indoor carpet track. The actual build process of putting everything together goes really well. There's no issues at all. The one thing that I have changed is the nuts that you get on the shocks. They are nylon nuts, never like them, so I've just swapped them out for metal ones, so they're not part of the actual kit. Being that there's only 4 of them, it would be nice to see those disappear. Nylon nuts are never that great, but in the actual comparison, you get them in the other cars as well. Just, it's one of those things, it's 4 nuts. I don't understand why they bother doing it, so swap those out. You've probably got a big parts bin like I have, so it's easy to just replace them. One little niggle that I could say, when I built the shocks up, I did have an issue with 2 of them getting the screw in nice and neatly, and there is no little tiny grommet washer with them. In some of the other kits, like when you buy the Schumacher ones, they actually come with the screw, but then there's a little tiny washer, like a rubber ring around it to seal properly. And I did have some issues with them weeping a little bit afterwards. So it would be nice if they put those in as well. That would be less than a penny, I would have thought. So putting in those would help deal with any extra kind of dribbling, which is what I've had. So faffing around with those for a while was a bit of a pain, and getting the shocks to be nice, but they are really nice and they're in the kit. They're not plastic at all, which if you look at like the Genova, for instance, which has lovely upgrade shocks, but you're paying through the nose for them and you buy them in pairs, so you've got to buy 2, the front and the back, and that puts it well over the price of this kit. Another thing I really like was the actual hubs with the carbon part on them. That was really nice, much more modern. And the big thing about this one that I found over the Dirt Master and the Genova was it's just like a different philosophy. If you take the Dirt Master was an RB5, I think it was, could be wrong, RB4, RB5, one of them, and they just put a new body on it. So they took an oldish race buggy and they made it look old, and then basically tried to bring the price point down as low as possible by changing all the parts to plastic. So that was kind of the Kyosho's idea of doing a car for this class, if you will. Whereas the Genova was a pre-made RC that it looks like G Force got hold of it and worked with Masami, upgraded it, tweaked it, improved it, did a few upgrades on it, and then they sold it. But it's still fundamentally an older kind of buggy, whereas the PRS-1 RM, there's a lot more modern aspects. Now, they make modern racing buggies, and I will be getting one on the show to take racing, four-wheel drive one. They've taken that kind of technology and then they've made this car. So a lot of it is in here. The chassis is very different to the other two. So around the track, I can see this one outperforming them. Now, we will find out. I will try and do that. But yeah, so I think at this moment, my kind of early judgments, I mean, we will put them head to head, is that if you're going to get one and you want to take it racing, this is probably the one you want to go for. As for the plastics, it's definitely one step up from the Kyosho, because they obviously went as cheap as possible to bring the price point down, and it is definitely on par. The Genova, very close on that front. Now, there was a few parts in this kit that in the manual was saying that they were an upgrade part. Turns out that they're in the kit, so that was a bit strange. So far, my experience with it is definitely a double thumbs up. I'm really chuffed that they've done this one, and I hope it actually does well for them, because I really want to see this genre growing. We've now got 3 examples of that, and I don't think you really can go wrong with any of them. They're all pretty good. But really, I think the Dirt Master is probably the lower one, and then you've got the Genova and this one fighting it out at the moment. But I do hope that this grows. What I don't want to see is these offerings discontinued and then it dies before it even gets off the ground. My main problem is that where do you run this? Do you run this, you know, if you take it to your local track, well, you can't really run it in a vintage class because it's not a vintage buggy, even though it looks like one. And then if you run it in a modern class, how well is it going to perform? Well, that's what we're going to do in a future episode. Anyway, thanks very much. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Hopefully with a little bit less cold. Bye-bye.